You're listening to the Trade Show Insights Podcast, Season 20, Episode 2. I'm your host and exhibit marketing strategist, Marlis Arnold, bringing you tools to improve your exhibit results. On today's episode, brought to you by the Exhibit Marketers Cafe, we're talking about how lead capture and lead management is changing, and you need to rethink how you're doing it for your upcoming trade shows. Well, today, my guest, we're going to be talking about something that I would say is a very critical, very key element of the overall trade show experience, but it's not something that most exhibitors spend a lot of time thinking about. So I'm really glad to have my guest today. Michelle Harman has been in the trade show industry for 20 plus years and has worn many hats, including being an exhibitor, producing trade shows, and selling event tech. She now serves as Senior Director of Global Sales at Captello, where she helps exhibitors increase their lead capture results. Michelle brings a wealth of experience and perspective on lead gathering and management techniques, combined with a passion for exhibitor success. So I'm excited to share her insights with you today. Welcome to Trade Show Insights, Michelle.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, let's talk. I think, like I said, people don't spend a lot of time thinking about how they gather the leads and what they're going to do with the leads, even though that's really, that's the ultimate goal of why you're going to a show. So let's talk a little bit about lead retrieval, lead capture. I don't know. Do you have a preference? Are the terms different? Do they mean the same thing? But let's talk about the history of lead capture and kind of what brings us up to today.
Great, thank you. Actually, I'm very passionate about lead capture because I think it's exactly why trade shows are a necessity. I believe that the trade show industry has evolved so much over the past many years. And actually, if you go back to the very beginning, when trade shows began, it was just about putting all the people in the room that need to talk to each other. And, every company was sort of on their own to figure it out. And they use many different methods. I mean, of course, they're there to just get that face to face time and connect with people, showcase their brand, build awareness about who they are, and of course, meet with their customers and prospects. But the actual capture process was, done on paper or, just exchanging phone numbers or every method you can think of.
Or one of my least favorite things, just drop your business card in a fishbowl for a drawing.
Oh yeah, that's real personal.
Yeah, that really gives you a lot of information about the person that you're talking with, right?
Like you're going to remember out of the 200 cards in the bowl, which one was that hot lead you were going after.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And over the years, yes, you mentioned business cards as well, exchanging business cards and people writing notes on napkins and on business cards, and they'd put them in their pocket or shove them in their briefcase and go back and try to figure out what just happened, right? And then of course follow up was compromised because you're not really, on top of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, trade shows got really smart. The trade show organizers, and the registration systems that they were using realized that there was still this disconnect and they wanted to offer more value. Because how do you, as an organizer, prove the value of your show if you can't help them, meet their goal, and that is to grow business and capture leads? So registration systems started coming out with lead capture,
Mm-hmm.
methods that eventually apps, of course, as
Right.
smartphones became a thing and apps became a thing. And next thing you know, they had a service that they could monetize, and make money on while providing that value to their exhibitors. So that took off, and I can see why. I mean, it solved a lot of pain points and it helped companies, sort of at the end of the show, get this comprehensive list of every lead they actually spoke with maybe some notes in it.
Right.
Now, over time, these lead capture apps have gotten a little better and better. They offer a little more customization to those questions, a little more
Hmm.
personalized information, sometimes some follow up, those kind of things. And honestly, over the years, now I can't imagine not having it. you know,
True. Yeah.
it's the easy button, right?
Yeah. Well,
Compared to the
and
alternative.
we've kind of come to take it for granted that that's just, you're going to scan badges, you're going to, have all those data points later of all the information about the person. And like you said, the key is the customizing, though, because I always tell exhibitors, if all you're doing is scanning badges, that means you're just getting basically a digital business card. You're just getting the contact information. You're not finding out anything about that person. So it's really important to have, like you said, that customization of finding out a little bit about what that person's looking for, what their timeline, their buying timeline is, or, all these kinds of questions that the exhibitors can now customize. That's really the key point.
Oh, absolutely. The more you can get into their needs and the more you can document all of that,
Mm-hmm.
the better. So when you're coming back, you can look at it. Oh, I remember Mary. I remember that conversation. That's right. She's looking for this. And you can have a little bit more of a personalized follow up, And so I have to give kudos to all the registration systems that really jumped in to help organizers solve this problem for their exhibitors and provide a service. But then, if you start to look at, okay, now the exhibitors have this service and they're utilizing it. What happened eventually was they um, they started to realize that there's still a lot of manual steps that they
Mm-hmm.
need to take on in order to, um, you know, just collect everything that they need, but get it to where they need it to go. In other words, we start to break down the whole process from the planning stages all the way to, them becoming a customer. There's
Mm-hmm.
still a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, well, there, like you said, there it's not a seamless process. And if they're
Hmm.
going to different shows, they've got different lead gathering systems at each show. Different software solutions that the organizers are using, and everyone is different, and all these things. So let's talk a little bit about some of these challenges and what's happening, how the industry is evolving and helping exhibitors maybe in some of these things. So one of them is, like you said, having that seamless process, because the exhibitor is scanning all these badges, they're getting all the information, and then they've got to find a way to get that into their CRM system so that they can actually follow up. So talk a little bit about that. How is that process evolving?
Sure. Well, I want to back up just a tad and say that uh, the whole purpose of lead capture, yes, we sort of identified is to capture that data in an easy way, but the exhibiting companies still, despite what was being provided by the trade show organizer, they still had there's a big shift in mindset of that they are going through right now, and it's absolutely a game changer. So like you said, if they're renting lead capture from disparate systems, and every show they go to has a different app that they have to download on their device with a different form, some flexible, some not, some allowing them to capture what they need, some they capture the data but they don't get the spreadsheet for a week later. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
processes that honestly are still handicapping them. And so the big shift that I'm seeing today, which is a huge like internal mind shift for or for the exhibitors that are going to
Mm-hmm.
trade shows, those big companies are realizing that, okay, if I have 50 shows I'm going to in a year, those 50 shows are producing, X amount of value for my company. Say 40% of the business we close each year is coming from trade shows. And what they're realizing is that um, they don't have full control of the process.
Right.
And they're also realizing that what they do is they put together a budget at the beginning of the year. All right, here's your budget. Go to these 50 shows and capture leads and bring them back and show me that we can earn this much revenue, proving the value of those shows.
And they're not able to track that sometimes. It's
They
like,
can't track
yeah.
it because every system's different. And
Mhm.
they also, here's the other problem. So the CMO per se gives them the budget and the team goes and does all the things. But you know what they're focused on with that budget? They're focused on, okay, let's, buy the booth, let's build it, let's ship it in, let's get the staff there, let's do all the things. And then the week before the show, let's rent the lead capture.
Yeah.
But the whole reason we're doing all that is to capture leads.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I said in the beginning, it's like this is like the key pivotal element of why you're going. And yet
Yeah,
it's like an afterthought for so
it's an
many exhibitors.
afterthought.
And the whole horror stories I've heard over the years of, back in the days of the gathering the business cards or the printouts from the lead retrieval. Sometimes these exhibitors would put all those printouts in their box, in their crate with their exhibit that perhaps they rented, and it gets shipped back to the exhibit house.
And
So
they might not see him
they
for a
don't even
week.
physically go home with the leads. I mean, it's like,
Wow.
so there's so many problems
Mm,
in this process, and it's things that need to be solved. So, like I said, let's talk a
really
little
does.
bit about how that process needs to
Yeah.
look or should look or hopefully is starting to evolve into.
I think the first step is putting the lead capture process at the forefront of your planning before you're deciding, what you're spending on your shows and where you're going and what you're doing.
Good
If
point.
you plan on the end goal in mind first and then work backwards, okay, which shows are we going to? How, which ones produce the highest quality versus the highest quantity? Which shows put our ideal customer in front of us? Which ones maybe are different, not so much. Let's plan that first and then say, okay, how do we plan to, in the process they need to think of, how do we plan to attract people to the booth, capture the right information the way we need it, okay,
Exactly.
engage them after the show with us, okay, and then close business faster and measure those results.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and like you said, that whole knowing what it is, I always tell exhibitors, what is it that makes a qualified lead for you? Because every company is different. I mean, how you define a qualified lead is not maybe necessarily what the next company would say makes a qualified lead. So
Mm,
being able to personalize those questions and the data points that you're gathering while you're having that conversation in the booth, that is so key to being able to know, do you need to know what they've used in the past? Do you need to know how large their company is? Do you need to, what are all these different pieces that you need to know about this prospect in order
hmm
to know if they're going to be a hot lead?
Well, and also the organization, the companies, the exhibitors that are trying to capture leads also have many times marketing and sales teams that aren't talking to each other. So the problem
Yeah.
is when you're capturing a lead, marketing needs data so they can, you know, capture marketing qualified data that drops them in the right campaign and promotes the right
Mm-hmm.
branding and products to that prospect. Sales needs sales qualified data so they can
Mm-hmm.
move them along in the pipeline and qualify them for, are they urgent, hot, warm, or cold? What
Right.
what's their budget? What's their timeline? Which territory does this lead belong to? So which rep
Mm-hmm.
should be assigned? All of those moving parts for sales to be successful need to be captured. And then your administrative team, they were the ones doing all the manual work to make the magic happen. How can we automate their manual processes so it's all instant, it's seamless, data's kept clean, data's moving to the right systems, and they don't have to manually worry about that after the show. And then measuring it all so year over year which shows are the most fruitful, which ones maybe we're spending way too much sponsorship money on that
Yeah.
really we don't have qualified buyers there. Maybe we should shift our thinking into spending money at the shows where we have higher qualified buyers. And if you
Mm-hmm.
start to understand that, now you're going to make decisions based on real data, but you can't do that with disparate systems
Yeah.
using something different at every single event.
Yeah. So let's talk about then how is this process evolving? How are things improving? And I know you're with Captello, so you obviously have a system, but tell us a little bit about
Mm.
what is this dream picture of how this process is going to work better for exhibitors?
Mm. That's always the magic question, right? Everybody wants to know what the secret is, right? What are all the companies out there doing and how are they, shifting and changing? Well, one is they're bringing everything in house. They're taking ownership of the entire process from beginning to end. In the past, honestly, that's the problem when you're renting disparate systems. Second, there's also a really big thing that, like, honestly, I'm going to say probably in the past 2 years has been extremely important to every company I'm talking to, and that's data security and privacy.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. I'm glad you did.
Yeah, so they're looking for a lead capture system that they can own 100%, so that all of the data, the private notes they're taking, the conversations, the
Mhm.
lead analyzing they're doing, it's all owned by them. If you think about it right now, an exhibitor will sign a contract to rent lead capture from an organizer, and then all their private notes and conversations are in all these disparate systems. And do you think their security team ever looked at them, or did they just sign the contract?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Because
and
that's
then
and I think we
yeah.
need to just back up a little bit on that because I think that's something that exhibitors don't think about, that because it is the show registration system that they're using to scan all these badges, that all of their notes, like you said, is going into this big conglomerate of all the data from that entire show. So yeah, that
Exactly.
is something that I think most exhibitors have never given a second thought about.
And it's huge with the companies we
Mhm.
work with that are data security, mindful. This has been a huge thing. And, of course, we've been through every security review possible for ISO 27001 and SOC 2 Type 2 and GDPR certification. And you have to, honestly,
Yeah.
in today's day and age with AI coming into play and a lot of other smart tech, you better make sure that everything is, secure and locked down. But
Mhm.
honestly, it's owning the whole process. So here's the dream, that you were asking about. The dream is a sales rep has one app on their phone. It's already approved by the company. They're armed, trained, and able to use it anywhere they go. They know exactly how it works. They know if they capture a lead, they know exactly where it's going, what that data is going to look like, how it's going
Mhm.
to end up in their systems, what the next steps are going to be, what communication is going out, and how it's going to feed their sales pipeline. That whole process has been predefined, trained, and when the team goes to the field, that one app can capture leads a dozen different ways. They
Mhm.
can scan badges when they're integrating with a registration system, using an API kit. They can transcribe business cards. They can do manual entry. They can set up a kiosk with it. They can build their own custom QR codes. They can, honestly, we even do games and activations. So if they
I was
want,
just
you
gonna
can
say,
walk up and
yeah.
scan your badge and play a game. We can capture at every touch point.
Well, and I was just going to mention that about the whole idea of the gamification and the personalization, because there are so many other things, like you said, when you as the exhibitor are controlling how you're gathering this data, you can,
Yep.
basically put it together in whatever format you want. If you want to add some kind of game, or like you said, if you want to have a kiosk where maybe you have people on an iPad in the booth answering questions that you've,
Hmm.
pre-set up in this system, so there's all these different ways that it can be personalized. But the other thing that I think that we kind of went through there really quick was the whole idea of that then the follow-up is also tied in with the system, because that's another thing that I love is when you're able, I always tell exhibitors that that first follow-up needs to come right away. It doesn't have to be in
Hmm.
depth, but it needs to be something just as simple as a quick email. Hey, thanks for stopping by our booth. And then just kind of recapping what you talked about. And I think that is something else that when you've got that built into the system, as you've got all that data, like you said, sometimes with the lead retrieval, the old fashioned lead
Yeah.
retrieval systems we'll talk about, sometimes I had exhibitors tell me it would take sometimes up to 2 weeks for them to get all their data. And I'm thinking, those leads
Mm,
are cold by that point. There is no reason that you should have to wait 2 weeks or even a week to get your all your lead information.
of
So
course.
having all that data, like you said, that you control as the exhibitor, you control that yourself, then you can easily do all those timely follow-ups that you should be doing all along.
So, a sad statistic from the Center of Exhibition Industry Research, known as CEIR,
Mm-hmm.
said they polled attendees, and the attendees said that only 3 out of 10 exhibitors they meet with at trade shows follow up effectively, which is kind of sad
Yeah,
because we
sad,
all
but
spend
yet,
thousands of dollars to exhibit.
yeah,
Why are companies not able to follow up effectively? My boss says time kills all deals.
yeah,
So if you can't follow up effectively, then you're basically killing your chances at winning the deal. But if you're one of those 30% that do follow up effectively, you have a huge advantage over your competitor who isn't.
yeah.
So it has to be thought through and part of your, process when you're building a lead capture system. So front to back, you have 100% follow up and you're treating your leads with concierge style care. And honestly, that's your reputation at stake.
I love that concierge style care. I love that because that's so true. And there's another statistic, I don't remember what the percentage is, but it's the
Mm.
percentage that attendees say that they get a follow-up after they've already made a buying decision. you know and
Yeah.
it's like, obviously these exhibitors are waiting far too long, and they're not giving the attendees the kind of attention that they should be.
Hmm.
And I think that whole term of concierge level
Concierge
attention
style
is
care.
so, yeah, it's so important, because even if and I always caution exhibitors, don't prejudge and assume if somebody's not ready to buy right away that they don't deserve your attention, because you never know, 6 weeks from now, 6 months from now, 3 years from now, that person could come back and end up being one of your biggest clients ever. So you want to make sure that you've got a system so that you're following up in a in
Mm.
a what do I want to say? A very strategic, very friendly, personal manner with everybody from the show. And I think, like you said, having that's got to be a strategy, that's got to be a system that's put in place long before the show starts, because otherwise, that is, I think, probably the biggest reason why those leads don't get followed up with, is because the exhibitor never had a system and a strategy for doing it. And then afterwards, they get busy with all kinds of other things, and those leads just kind of get shoved in a back corner somewhere.
Well, and then let's take that to the next level because you're 100% right. Honestly, the follow up is huge. So let's say we were able to attract people to your booth. You captured lots of leads. Honestly, we help people throw out the net wider so they have all kinds of ways to capture. You capture in the booth, you capture when you're teaching sessions. If you're giving away, gifts in your booth, they shouldn't just get a free gift without you knowing who they are. So capture. And we also believe that data is king, right? So if you talked to Mary Smith in the booth and then she came by and played your game and then she went to your session and you taught, loved your presentation and she scanned a QR code at the end of your session and was able to get a copy of your slide deck and then, got a picture from the photo booth that you had in your booth as a keepsake, and then all of these things happened. Well, think about it. What if we helped you to clean up the data and instead of having 3 Mary Smiths on your lead list, you have one Mary Smith did all these things. So
Yeah,
now we
exactly. And you can
organize it
see,
all and then send it off to your CRM so you see the whole picture of what Mary Smith just did with you. And we're
exactly.
capturing little bits of data about her at every touch point. Now that's huge. Yes.
Well, and you see then from that, Mary is a hot lead because, maybe you had a brief conversation in the booth, but she did all these other things. So she's
Mm-hmm.
obviously very interested in what you have to offer. And like you
100%.
said, if you didn't have all of those data points, you wouldn't have any way of knowing that. All you would have is just, and especially back to the old fashioned lead capture methods of all you would have is a badge scan with maybe just a couple of check boxes of something that she'd indicated she was interested in. And that would be all you'd have. And this way you've got, like you said, a more full picture of all of the different ways that she interacted with your brand.
100%. And that's huge for a company that's trying to understand, who they're connecting with, what is working with marketing, what isn't. So if you can capture data at every touch point, you're expanding your net. Right, if you think about it that way. And we also believe you shouldn't limit the number of user licenses, and organizers sell their lead capture based on user licenses. Well, when you're using your own system, your own app that you take everywhere, it's unlimited users. Now your sales team has it, your marketing team has it, your executives have it, your speakers have it. Everyone that's working the event has it. And you don't have to like share a device in the booth.
Right.
Now it's on your phone. That means you're capturing in the booth, you're capturing it in the lunch line, you're capturing at the bar, you're capturing in the hotel, you're capturing everywhere. You are going to double and triple the number of leads you capture in a meaningful way.
Right. And I love that it's all about that it's meaningful. It's serendipitous at
Yeah.
some level, because you are, like you said, it's who you meet at lunch or it's who you meet on the elevator or wherever you might be going, because sometimes those are, I know one of my best clients that I worked with for several years I met her because we were both taking a break from walking the show floor and sitting on a bench in the lobby of the convention center. And we were just sitting there taking a break and we struck up a conversation and I ended up working with them for several years. So you just never know that they're not always going to be somebody that comes by your booth.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I literally just had a client sign on today that we met in an Uber. You know?
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, but right, okay. So we just captured the conversation and
Yeah.
it led to them being a customer. So it honestly, that's how sales should work. But let's
Yeah.
take it another level. You captured all the data, or you got all the touch points captured, you pulled that person in, you documented every conversation, you sent them an email. The email said, "Hi, Mary. Thanks for coming by. It was so wonderful to meet you at show ABC. Attach a few brochures on some of the things we spoke about. I hope you take a minute to review them. Why don't we, touch base next week?"
Mm-hmm.
Now it's very personalized, and you schedule it to go out the day after you met them, so they think you took the time to write it, but it was also automated.
Right.
Now, okay, yeah, I mean, I'm giving up a little bit of a trick, but it is still, very much about what they asked for, and you're sending them
Mm-hmm.
relevant documents. Now, let's take it one more step. This is something a little bit newer that you might consider too. Um, Not only can we capture at every touch point, even sessions, attendees, you can capture groups, you can capture meetings, you can do all that. But what about this? I just got done with a trade show about a month and a half ago. I walked away with 32 appointments. Now, normally, those were my urgent and hot leads. Every time
Mm-hmm.
somebody walked in front of me that I thought qualified as urgent or hot, meaning the intent to purchase in a reasonable amount of time, and my product was ideal for them, I would always ask them, "Do you have your calendar with you? Why don't we go ahead and set up an appointment for the, next week or two when you're back in the office and we'll continue our conversation?" That was 32 people I didn't have to chase down with emails and phone calls to get the
Exactly.
appointment.
Yeah.
All right. So, how much of my sales cycle did I shorten? Think about this.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, my sales cycle is anywhere from 4 months to a year, okay, for someone to choose working with us. But I've already closed 5 deals from that show, and it's been a month and a half
Wow.
because I
Yeah,
had
you got
appointments
on it
booked.
right away. Yeah.
And they were excited, they were motivated, they were ready to move forward, they were looking for something, and I didn't drop the ball. I actually asked them. So inside these lead capture apps now, we're not only integrating and putting the lead into their CRM, we're actually integrated with their Outlook and Google calendars, and we're scanning a badge and putting them straight onto our calendar now.
I love that, because that, I think that is another thing that stops some exhibitors, is they're like, well, what do I do for my next step? Well, if they're taking that next step and setting it up right there in the booth while they've got the person face to face in front of them,
How much
that's
does that shorten my sales cycle and
exactly.
all of the work I go chasing people down after a show? Because guess what? All the companies they met with, not all of them, about 30% of them, are going to chase them down.
Yeah.
Right? So they're getting all these emails and messages from all kinds of people. How do you
And you're already
remove
on their
yourself from
calendar.
the clutter? Right? Exactly. So those are the huge benefits of a company owning the process front to back. Their success is no longer dependent on outside sources.
Yeah.
Okay? That's huge. And then, and we keep adding more and more capabilities to solve those real pain points. And I just think it's really important that exhibitors that exhibit at shows every day, they know their pain points. They know the hard part about their job. And if you're doing, 20, 50, 100 events a year or more, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. I mean,
Right.
we know that, so why don't we say, look at the whole process? And honestly, I can't wait for this year, because I'll tell you something that I'm going to just give you a hint. I can't say exactly what it is yet, but with AI available now, it's a game changer. And
Yeah.
the companies that are really owning the process front to back will have huge advantages. And I just see that, um, you know, again, between security, owning the process, and higher goals with restricted budgets, and
Hmm.
also, you know, in the old day, if a company wanted more leads, they would just do more shows. How expensive is a show? We're talking 20,
Exactly.
30, 40, 50,
Yeah.
$100,000 for a show.
Yeah. You want better
So
ROI from the shows you're already
wouldn't
going to.
wouldn't you rather just,
Yeah.
invest a little bit in the process so that you can, multiply the results of the existing shows, learn, and then make better decisions the next year? I actually
That's
had a customer get done with onboarding. They went through their first 3 shows with us, and we did a review. She goes, "I cringe thinking of how much business we've missed out on by waiting to do
mm,
this."
yeah.
She goes, "I wish we did it years ago."
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think it goes back to, people don't realize, they don't stop to analyze what they're doing, and they don't realize that there is a better way. So, Michelle, thank you so much for
mm,
joining us on Trade Show Insights to show us not only what lead capture looks like today, but give us a vision of, like we said, the dream ideal of where we are going and what exhibitors actually can do with it. So I know we could go on all afternoon talking about this. So thank you so much for being here on Trade Show Insights. And what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
well, they can visit our website at captello.com. That's CAPTELLO.com. Or they can contact me. My email is maharman, HARMAN, at captello.com.
Great. And we'll have links for all of that in the show notes as well. So, Michelle, thanks a lot. And I hope everybody goes out there and really takes time and figures out how to improve their lead capture and lead management, because again, that's how you're going to have bigger and better ROI. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, you can subscribe to the Trade Show Insights podcast and automatically receive future episodes on your chosen device. Simply search for Trade Show Insights in Apple, Spotify, or virtually anywhere else that podcasts are found, then click the subscribe button. Trade Show Insights is protected by the Creative Commons copyright license. You may feel free to share this recording with colleagues or embed it on your own blog, as long as it's shared in its entirety and is not used for commercial purposes. To learn more, please see the link in the sidebar of the show notes at tradeshowinsights.com. Well, that's it for this episode of Trade Show Insights. Be sure to check out our show notes and archives at tradeshowinsights.com. You can also connect with me using the social media links or the contact page on the site. I'm Marlis Arnold. Thanks for listening, and be sure to join us next time for more tools to improve your exhibit results.